Coach, what would you say your deepest position group would be at this point of camp?
Yeah, I still think, we're kind of separating into the ones and twos kind of right now and trying to figure out who they are, but I would still say the deepest is probably the D-line. And next, it's probably, I think we feel good about linebackers where we're at, but I think another deep position with the addition of the young guys and some transfers is going to be the defensive backfield.
Have they come along quicker than you anticipated, the DBs?
Yes and no. I mean, I thought they'd make a big jump. We thought some of those additions would be pretty good. I think the best part is the guys that were here before, some of the older guys, they kind of fed off the competition the new guys brought. So those guys made a big jump, along with the new guys giving us a lot of depth and some guys challenging for some starting spots. So I think they made a huge jump. More than expected, I don't know, but they definitely made a huge jump for us.
Within that secondary, how close are you to naming an official, ones and twos group? And I guess if not, when do you expect that to see?
Yeah, like I told you after the last scrimmage, I think we got it figured out who the ones and twos are. Now we're trying to. There's still a few position battles that's probably going to go down to the wire. And if we had to name a depth chart today, we could. When the head coach tells us to release it, we will. But I think we know who the ones and twos are at least right now at every position. Well, I mean, he's Coach Frost talks, when we go into the people's homes in the recruiting process, Coach Frost always talks about it's not necessarily the most talented players as freshmen. It's the guys that come in and attack, jump in both feet first, have a maturity about yourself when you come in, and that's what he's done. He's jumped in with both feet. He's jumped in the deep end right away. He was drinking out of a fire hose for about a week or two, but he's figured it out, and he's been mature through the whole process. He's acted like a veteran. And he competes like crazy every day, right or wrong, win or lose. He competes every rep. So I think he's brought a little bit of that edge to that room.
Is that pretty rare for a true freshman here?
Yeah, it's usually one or the other. Usually a guy's really mature and is kind of tentative out there, or he fires like crazy, but he's kind of acts like a freshman. He's kind of got a little bit of both, which is a unique situation, but it's a great thing for us. Well, the defensive line group, it's the same. I think we kind of know who that rotation is going to be. Right now, it's going to be who's going to be the first three, who's going to be the second three to run out, because, there's been days where, you could say Ben Stilley's the best guy. There's been days where Carlos Davis has been the best guy. There's been days when Mick's the best guy. There's been days when Freedom's the best guy. There's been days when you say, who's the next guy off the bench? It's Khalil, it's yada, yada, yada. Khalil, maybe he should be in the starting lineup. So I think what you're seeing out of that group is everybody's playing really well. I haven't seen one guy just dominate and be consistent yet, and that's kind of over this next week. We're looking who can be the most consistent and still play at a high level.
So you like the depth?
I do like the depth there. I like the depth a lot. I think you're going to see a lot of faces in that rotation. We're going to be able to keep those guys fresh.
Eric, you guys broke camp on over the weekend. Now the kids start school today. How do things change for what you want to try to get accomplished on a day-to-day basis?
Nothing really changes for us. We kind of broke camp, but we really didn't because it's not game prep week yet. The thing about this camp is compared to others is there's no more two-a-days, right? So it's kind of a seamless transition. Now we have to change the schedule a little bit. We don't have as much meeting time in the afternoon, so we have to condense that in the walkthrough if you want to have a walkthrough. But it really hasn't been too much of a transition other than condensing things because of the schedule, because of the way the camp was set up. So I think this week is going to seem almost like camp to the guys with addition of class. And start Thursday, Friday, that's when they'll start transitioning into scout team, look squads. We'll start getting ready for the first game, that kind of thing.
Were the guys still sharp this morning knowing that their workload, from an academic standpoint, picks up starting today?
Yeah, they were sharp. I thought we started off a little slow the very first period, and then we really picked it up the last half of practice, but not a disappointment. Not quite as good as we finished last week, but they were pretty good today.
Thanks for Coach. Anybody in addition to the roster today that really caught your eye at first glance?
Well, it's hard at first glance because they don't have shoulder pads on yet, so we couldn't get them in a lot of the team stuff, a lot of the group periods. They mostly did individual and then kind of stood around. So I think as soon as we get their shoulder pads on, we'll be able to see if there's some guys that maybe can help us on special teams and or offense and defense. But I think those guys all understand special teams right now. If they can get on those things, they can really help this team in a hurry.
How much you ask the veterans to bring those newcomers along just starting today?
I made the comment the other day. We tell the veterans, if you're a real guy, our job is to replace you in recruiting. But if you're a real guy, you're going to teach somebody to take your job and know that he can't do it. So I expect those guys to really do a nice job of helping bring those young guys along, just like they did in the summer with the incoming freshmen and transfers. I thought they did an unbelievable job of teaching them scheme, teaching them tempo, teaching them technique, and they've got to continue to do that with these new guys. And I think they've kind of grasped that concept a little bit.
Is there a position that you have lingering concerns about 10 days before the first game?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a position where we're like, oh man, we just don't have a guy there. I think there's going to be some groups maybe that aren't quite as deep as others, or a position that we're going to kind of have to, roll some guys through. Maybe, one position or the other. It's going to have to be a deal where if we're going to play 80 reps, it's going to have to be a 25, 25, 25, and get the most out of those three guys. But I don't think there's a group where we're saying, man, we just don't have anybody that can roll out there and play. I'm pretty pleased with the first two groups we can put out there right now.
How do you feel like you guys have stopped the run on camp?
I think we've done a very good job, and we get a lot of practice against the offense we see day to day. The real test, obviously, as you guys all know, is when people start running downhill and getting in big people groups in the Big Ten and start smashing us. That's where we've got to get the scout team rolling. That's why it's so important to get some of these new guys that you guys mentioned in here, so we can line up with a fullback and a tight end, or two tight ends and a fullback, and really play against power and ISO and lead strong and all those type of things. I think that's going to be the true test of how we can stop the run.
Is it kind of as a defense, kind of a split personality, because there are spread teams in this league, and you're going to face some in non-conference play, but then you got these giant, jumbo teams that do, sauce. How is it a challenge to kind of try to balance those things?
No, I think they know, and the thing we've tried to get across to them is they kind of know by call what they're trying to defend, and their personality changes by the call. And they'll know if it's a spread team run call, if it's a spread team pass call, if it's a pro style offense run call or a pass call. But their personality, you can kind of see it change by the call, just by the stances of the defensive linemen and kind of the demeanor of the safeties and the linebackers getting to the line of scrimmage. And so I think they've done a good job of understanding the scheme that way.
And you mentioned veteran leadership. How valuable has Mick Stoltenberg been for you guys in the transition and bringing guys along, not just on the field play, but mentally, leadership and that type of thing?
Yeah, I think there's a few guys that are kind of stepping in that role, and he's very important. He's starting to get to the point where we can talk to him along with some others. Coach Frost can mention something to him, and he can bring up the entire team if he needs to. He can bring up the defense if he needs to, and he can communicate like we would. But sometimes, obviously, most of the times, it's more powerful coming from a teammate if it's done the right way and the guys respond. And so far, I think the tide is turning a little bit, and they're starting to respond to their leaders, including Mick.
Hey, Eric, a guy like Colin Miller, what do you guys as coaches need to see to say that a guy can play inside and outside and be as versatile as he is being for you guys?
Yeah, I think, with Colin, obviously in the spring he played some outside in camp. He's played a little bit of both, but he's a very sharp guy. He understood kind of the whole scheme, even though he was on the edge. His movements were really good. He's a physical guy. We just needed to get him some looks in there because I think he could be a very impactful player either inside or outside. And inside was kind of the place where we needed a little more depth at the time. And I think he understands that, and the way that he can help the team right now is to focus inside linebacker along with outside linebacker so he can kind of go into wherever we need him to in the game.